Go.
So we're a group called Kata, and we felt like at the heart of this chapter was this struggle between the American manufacturing for textiles and the importers. So the picture that we came up with was a battle scene between here Julia Hughes representing the importers of Chinese goods and textiles, and Augie Tantillo, who represents the American textile manufacturers. So in this picture we can clearly see that there's a fight between them. In fact, the book talks about the war between these two camps, and it talks about this war being fought with politics alone. But I think they could probably go beyond that and potentially kill each other here soon. But we also see that in this struggle, we see Chinese goods that represent the price being driven down, the race to the bottom, the price against the policy of the United States to protect its own industries and its own manufacturers. So there's this constant struggle between the two. Also, we see that this race to the bottom represents, in a lot of ways, the demise of the manufacturers here in the United States and the move of manufacturing jobs to China and elsewhere. So in the headlines, we see that 10 states losing the most jobs to China. We also see Obama calls for tax breaks to return jobs from abroad. So most of the headlines exemplify the end result of the struggle between policy and price between the importers and American manufacturers. For Indiana, the parallel that we drew was, again, at the heart of this, we saw subsidies versus tariffs as sort of the devices that each side uses. So for Indiana, we saw that there were recent news in regards to subsidies for ethanol. Recently, the government ended ethanol tariffs, but before that there were subsidies, and there were tariffs and subsidies. The tariffs that kept Brazilian ethanol, which is produced at a much lower cost and much more efficiently, was impeded from coming into the United States. They've ended that, so that we can see that as a win for Julia's camp, the importers camp. So Indiana, even though is not in the textiles business anymore, I think they were back in the 1800s, but even though they're not in textiles, the same concepts apply as far as this war that's continuing to be waged on between these two camps. So some of the questions are, how do we continue to compete with Chinese or other manufacturers that can produce the goods cheaper without interfering with prices or interfering with impeding these products to come in. Eventually, Augie talks about in the book that he believes he's going to lose the fight. So it's kind of a matter of time. I think with ethanol we still have a few more years to go, but eventually the markets themselves will tend to dictate where it's going to go.